Hello, this is a quick video to help you step-by-step walk through and log hours to the GivePulse platform for the Spartan Leadership Challenge. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you go to uncg.givepulse.com and you want to log in if you've already set up your account. Make sure that you always use this log in via UNCG button at the top, and that will take you through the single sign-on process so that you can use your same UNCG username and password you do for other campus accounts on the same platform, and you won't have to create anything new. For the purposes of this video, I'm logged in using the OLCE account. But once you're logged in, you should see your profile photo if you loaded one and your name in the space up there. To go ahead and add or log hours, you would click on the drop-down menu beside your profile, and you want to hit Add Impact. Impact is what GivePulse calls hours. There are other measurements of impact that you can record, but for the purposes of the Leadership Challenge, we're only going to be referring to impacts as hours. The first thing that we want to know is where you did your service. And so it doesn't have to be an organization that uses GivePulse. You can just manually type them in if they're not in our platform. But we have 100+ organizations in here, so hopefully you'll be able to find them. For the purposes today, I'm going to be using Reading Connections, but if it were an organization that when I typed it in and hit enter, it didn't pop up, I would use this button to say I can't find it. And then I would manually type in the name of the organization and where it's located. And then the rest of the prompts are the same for everyone. But as I mentioned, I will use an organization that we already have in here. And so I'm adding my impact and I'm going to use Reading Connections. I would click on it once I see that it pops up. For organizations that are already in GivePulse, they may have preloaded some specific things that you may have done as a volunteer. This is an optional category. You can leave this blank. If your organization doesn't have anything preloaded, you may not see this at all. I'm going to go ahead and say I was a remote adult literacy tutor. The next prompt is going to ask you, is this for a course? We consider on GivePulse each level of the Leadership Challenge to be a course, so I want to say yes. And for most of you, you're only going to see your level that you're enrolled in once you click here. In this case, let's say I'm doing this for my Bronze Challenge, and it would show up with the correct academic year. As far as verification, we don't want you to stress out about this part. We don't require verification of hours through GivePulse right now. And so if you see your contact or the person that's your supervisor at your volunteer site, you can go ahead and select them. If they're not there or you're not sure who it is, you can manually click and add their name and email. If it's the case if you don't know who they are, you can always list OLCE and then our main account lead at uncg.edu as the verifier email, because it does require something in this section. Then I would scroll down and enter the date that I volunteered. And so each day we volunteer, we want to list that as a separate impact. So my start date, if I volunteered today, would be June 6th, end date June 6th, and I would put the start and end times that I volunteered. Down here, I would specifically type in the amount of hours that those times indicate. So however many hours that is. There are, as I mentioned, other ways to measure impact, but we're going to stick with time for the purposes of Leadership Challenge. This is an optional field for folks who maybe weren't able to enter their site at the top or wanted to make sure that that was recorded. There is a box if you want to add a quick review, reflection, any feedback about your service. Maybe it's a summary of what you did or something you learned at the site. That can help you later when you review your impacts as you're doing your final Leadership Challenge reflections at the end of the semester or the year. They can help you kind of remember what you did at your site, but they're not required in GivePulse. Personal notes, those are things that would just show up for you, again, not required. As far as sharing and privacy settings, go ahead and leave UNCG, OLCE, and your course level. So if you're bronze, silver, or gold, leave those there and make sure that when it asks you if you want to make your impact private, you say no, because we want to make sure that it shows up and we can see all the hours that you've recorded. And then the last step is to click this Add Impact button here at the bottom, and it would go ahead and record your hours to your profile. To double check them, let's pretend I submitted that. You can always go to your activity and view your impacts. This isn't going to look very accurate to what you would see because this is an admin account, but you would be able to see the number of hours that you've submitted. Impacts would essentially be the number of times you submitted hours or the number of days that you volunteered. And so you can keep track of how many that you have already logged in that way. I hope this was helpful. It might take a minute going through the first time you log hours, but after that, it should be short and sweet.